Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. NBA season is nearly here, and we are running through each NBA team doing NBA season previews. At this point, there are already a handful on the channel, and today, Anthony and I are attacking a couple, starting with the Detroit Pistons. And it was an interesting season last year for the Pistons. Well, interesting for a minute, and then it got uninteresting and uncompetitive quickly. So last year, the Pistons finished 17 and 65, which was bad enough for the worst record in the NBA. Cade Cunningham played a total of 12 games with injuries, or because of injuries. And after those 12 games, the Pistons essentially said, hopefully we get Victor Wembanyama. And they were not necessarily looking to win games. So, Anthony, what was your thoughts and what are your reactions to the Pistons season last year?
Um, I guess obviously, I mean the main thing was Cade not being healthy. Obviously, that's gonna throw a wrench into any plans you have that season or any goals if your best player gets injured and misses that many games. Although uh, towards the middle of the season, I understood the tanking necessarily to try to get a generational prospect like Wembanyama. So I understand how the season played out a little bit, but overall it was a little unfortunate. And hopefully, this upcoming season could kind of be where you want to see some semblance of hope and structure with the young guys and chemistry, like people kind of wanted to see last year, but never got the chance to.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that a lot of people don't talk about with the Pistons is when you lose Cade Cunningham, it's like, yeah, any team that loses their best player, you're probably not going to be that competitive, especially unless you're like a great team that has, two or three elite talents. If you're one of these teams that's looking to be in the middle of the road or looking to rebuild or looking to fight for a playing spot, if you lose your top player, your season goes down the drain immediately. So in that sense, it's understandable. And from an to be optimistic, you got to see a lot of young guys out there. Jaden Ivey got a lot of minutes. James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, Killian Hayes. These guys got minutes. Some for better, some for worse. At a minimum, you kind of we kind of have a better idea of where these guys stand going into the next year of young careers for all these guys. And Bojan Bogdanovic had the best season of his career and was a good score. And the Pistons eventually elected not to trade him. So even though it wasn't the best season, it still ended up being valuable because so many of these young guys got to play minutes where if they were pushing for a playing spot, you're not going to get a guy like Ivy or Killian Hayes as many minutes. You're going to go with some veteran options off the bench. So in that sense, it was a little bit of a success in terms of a rebuild. So that was nice to see at least. And then as we go into this season, the offseason was not really that eventful for the Pistons. The one big thing that happened was they shift from Dwayne Casey to Monty Williams as a head coach. So, what are your thoughts on bringing in Monty Williams to be the head coach of this Pistons team?
Um, I mean, I like it. I don't dislike it. I think Dwayne Casey's a good coach as well, but I think it was a fair, um, switch of the head coach. But now, I would say, especially now with a lot of the new people you have on the roster now, even though it's just been 1 year, there is a fair amount of new faces, considering the two first round draft picks. Um, but and then yeah, I think Monty Williams is a good coach overall. You've seen he's had success in recent years. Ultimately, wasn't able to win a chip, but I would say the contract was huge, wasn't it though?
Yeah,
Because
they gave him a lot of money.
okay, because I was gonna say if you could secure a good coach like that with when there's a lot of young players on the team, that I think overall it'd be a good move. But I was gonna say I think it took him a lot of money to get him though. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Monty Williams was too bullish on coaching this season, but the Pistons gave him an offer he could not refuse. And in turn, Greg Popovich got paid because the Spurs then had to top what the Pistons gave Monty. So a little bit of a chain reaction there too. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Monty can do with these young guys, specifically Cade Cunningham. The Phoenix Suns were a team that shot a lot of mid-range shots, sometimes to a fault, and Cade Cunningham shot really well from the mid range in the 12 games we saw. I'm interested to see if that is something that they do a lot this season. But as far as development goes, I think he's a guy that could work with some of these young guys and help them progress, which is basically all you're looking for. And as you alluded to, the draft, Asar Thompson and Marcus Sasser, and then in free agency, they brought in Joe Harris and Monty Morris. So some moves, nothing too crazy. They didn't go out and break the bank and bring in a guy in free agency. It's basically going to be practically the same roster with some slight tweaks, a couple more young guys, Asar Thompson, a guy with some potential. So that kind of brings in some new blood into this roster, but it's nothing that will light the world on fire. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then but overall, I thought you guys did. Or I thought the Pistons had a good draft. Um, because I mean Thompson was kind of sitting there. I feel like you had to take him. And then I would just say overall, I mean I really like Sasser coming out of Houston and stuff. So I'm hoping he could be a good NBA player because he was fun to watch in college.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Asar Thompson is a guy that, I've got some questions about him. The 3-point shooting is a concern, but he looked really good in the preseason. And those both Eamon and Asar, great passers, very high basketball IQ, high effort defensively, really athletic. So I'm not sure that he's ever going to be like a number one on a team, but the Pistons are basically in a position where Cade Cunningham has to be that guy. When you take a guy first overall, he for your rebuild to work out, he has to pan out. So if Cade pans out like you hope, and then you get guys like Asar to come in and be a 2 or 3 option. Same with Ivy, if he can be a 2 or 3 option. Ultimately, 2 years down the road, your rebuild is looking nice. And then as
Hmm.
far as Sasser goes, I loved him at Houston as well. Very fun guy to watch, spark plug off the bench. And that's not really a type of player that the Pistons have. So hopefully he can light things up off the bench and provide some value in that aspect, because something that the Pistons could greatly use. And then as we head into the season, the starting five is kind of up in the air. I wrote the Pistons season preview, and my projection was Cade at the 1, Ivy at the 2, Bogdanovich at the 3, Beef Stew at the 4, and Jalen Duren at the 5. And just some housekeeping things, like the Pistons released some injury news about an hour ago. So Isaiah Livers going to be out for 4 weeks. Monty Morris going to be out for 3 weeks, and Bojan Bogdanovich going to be out for 4 weeks. So Bogdanovich is probably out of that starting 3 spot. Well, he's obviously out. My bad.
Hmm.
But Asar Thompson would be my guess as the guy that's coming in, since he played well in the preseason. Otherwise, you're looking at a Joe Harris, which at that point you might as well give the rookie some run with the starters. So, what is your reaction to that starting five? Uh, who do you think could find some success this year, and who are you looking forward to seeing this year in that starting five?
Um, I really like Duran. I thought he played pretty good last year. And he was very surprising, especially how that draft day worked out, where it was a bit confusing at first. But I think uh, I'm excited to see him, and then especially with a player like Cade, if he can stay on the court with his level of passing and stuff. Also, I think it's hard to just not keep going back and saying Cade. Obviously, it's who you want to see because as we've been stressing, like you said, if if a rebuild's going to work, you need to see he needs to pan out, and it was just tough because it's to the point where I liked him coming out of college, but I wasn't. I don't know how good he is at this point in his career because I still see him on certain lists of like top 25 under 25 or just like best youngest players and stuff like that. And I'll see his name all the time, and I see his name maybe over some guys that I do like a little bit more. But that it's just always tough to see because I haven't got to see a large handful of games, uh, considering what happened last year. And then finally, the other thing I was going to see is Jaden Ivey because I was a bit excited for him coming out of the draft too. I like some parts of his game. I didn't love everything. So I want to see what type of step forward he takes this year. And then once again, having Cade Cunningham on the floor would be a big help to him too.
Yeah, I'll start with the Cade, and I agree with a lot of what you said. And he's off. You're often comparing guys who similar in ages, so it's like at this point, a lot of people aren't even for sure whether they like Cade or Evan Mobley more. Guys from the same draft class, or a guy comparing a guy like Cade to a guy like Anthony Edwards, is something I've seen a lot with a lot of these young guys, or even LaMelo Ball, and it's like it's hard to put a stamp on where you think Cade should fit because right now a lot of Cade's skills and potential is more projection than what we've seen. And even in his rookie year, it's like his rookie year that Pistons team was an absolute mess. They had the number one overall pick for a reason. He's out there with basically Killian Hayes has made a lot of improvements to the point where maybe he is a decent bench player this year, and he played well in the preseason. But when we're talking Killian Hayes of 2 years ago, that was rough.
It was bad.
Um, it was really bad, and that's what Cade was working with. So this year, hopefully Cade can stay healthy and we actually see what he looks like with competent players, guys that are probably going to be NBA players for a significant period of time, and see how he fits in a lineup with a guy like Jaden Ivey, who I also like. But how are those two guys gonna play together? Because neither is an elite 3-point shooter, and that's kind of one of the flaws with this starting lineup and this Pistons team in general. Is where's your snipers? How are you going to space the floor? Right now, you really just have guys like Sasser and a guy like Joe Harris. Those are probably your best 3-point shooters, and that's not something that you should be proud of. Joe Harris maybe can get some run with guys like Cade and Ivy, but you're not going to run out of lineup of Cade, Ivy, and Sasser at your 1, 2, and 3 in all likelihood. So Cunningham and Ivy both going to have to shoot the three. And then I will say, Jalen Duren, like you mentioned, I love Jalen Duren. I believe he is either 19 or 20 heading into this year. He was absurdly young last year. I think he's 19 heading into this year. And he does not play like a 19-year-old. He does not look like a 19-year-old. He is good. And I'm interested to see how he looks, what steps he can take, how he plays next to Cade Cunningham. So in like when I look at this starting five, I'm looking at it as more of how do these guys play together and what steps forward do they take rather than how many games do they win, which is more of a which in my opinion is almost more important this year. We can start talking about winning and being a playoff contender or play in contender next year, but this year, when you got all these guys playing together for the first time, you got to see the progression.
I'd agree with that because that's why I think when we first started talking about last year, um, it was fine. Like the season sure could have been a disappointment, but it was all it was supposed to do was get the young players, more work. And then, like you said, if your goal is to maybe be a play-in team and you lose your best player, like that's just it's not going to happen. So same with this year. Um, I think this season is a bit more fun for the Pistons because of the younger guys now, and then the ones from last year that just to see more minutes. I don't think the goal. I think you're right. I don't think the goal should be the playoffs or something, or not maybe not the playoffs, but to start to do a postseason run by any means, or even try to get an eighth seed rather than a play-in. because I think there are so many young players, which does make the team a little bit interesting. It's all about finding the right lineups and seeing who works well with each other. And then maybe next year in free agency or in the draft, address those little couple holes, hopefully that after this year, and then go for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I imagine the Pistons are going to be a team that runs out a lot of different starting lineups. Just figuring out who plays well next to a certain style of player, which young guys play well together, which young guys gel together. I imagine you're going to see guys like right now we're starting Isaiah Stewart at the four next to Jalen Duren. Maybe they get some Wiseman minutes in the 4 and 5 next to each other. I know a lot of people really don't like that idea, and I don't like that idea. But that's something we saw in summer league. Maybe we get Isaiah Livers in the starting lineup. Maybe we take a guy like Ivy to the bench for a Monty Morris. Maybe they try out different lineups with Killian Hayes, see how he fits next to Cade, see how he fits next to Ivy. So I imagine, like you said, you got to figure out where you're strong and where you're weak heading into next year. And I think that'll result in seeing, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lineups um, throughout the season. So I think we're going to see a lot of different looks as the Pistons try and figure out, you know, where should we draft this upcoming year and where should we sign guys in free agency, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have a decent chunk of cap space again heading in to this offseason, because last offseason they practically just brought in guys like Monty and guys like Joe Harris who are on 1 year expiring. So that money will be available this offseason. And also maybe we see some trades at the deadline. Maybe a guy like Bagley gets moved for to a team that's contending and needs some depth in the big man. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of lineups and a lot of changes as the season plays out. And we've touched on this already with our season projection, but to kind of nail down where I think in the post, because like I said earlier, I wrote the Pistons post. I said the goal should be 30, just progression. You don't quite make the play in. You're not last in the East. I think I need to walk that back a little bit based on the injuries. When you lose a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic, probably not going to have as much success early. So that'll cost you a couple wins. Monty Morris cost you a couple wins. So I think it's going to end up being closer to 25 rather than that 30 mark. Maybe they don't get last in the East. I think this year it's hard to pin down teams that are going to be truly terrible. But maybe we could see them ahead of a team like the Wizards or like the Hornets. So that would kind of be how I view them as a season projection as far as the standings go. And like we talked about earlier, really, whether you're 15th or 14th in the East doesn't matter. It matters more how you develop your young guys.
That's why it's funny you say that because in my preview, because I do like the Pistons a little bit. Like I said, this team is more fun this year, and I'll be more interested to watch because of all the young talent. So, and like I said, I do like so I like the roster a little bit, and I had over the two teams you mentioned, Wizards and the Hornets, in my preview. So I think I had them third to last in the East. Yeah, I think it was just over the Wizards, and then I put them over the Hornets as well. So I haven't finished it yet, 13th around that area. Pretty, a little too far to go for that play in at that point because you still got the Pacers and the Magic. In the Bulls, maybe if you think they're going to drop, but Magic are supposed to play better this season. So around right there.
Yeah, and that's going to be a theme for a lot of the season previews. Like, there's a lot of good teams this year. I was looking earlier, and I was like, who are going to be the teams that absolutely suck? Who's going to be your team that wins 15 games and is dying to get the first overall pick? And maybe you can say the Wizards, but outside of the Wizards, in both conferences, there's not a lot of truly awful teams. Teams have to lose, but there aren't really, teams that you look at and go, oh, that's an ugly team. They're not even trying to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a thing to remember when we project teams to be 14th or 13th in conferences. That, hey, that's kind of where the NBA is right now. All right. That is the Detroit Pistons season preview. And we will have all 29 other teams up on the channel, Vendetta Sports Media. So make sure you like and subscribe, and then return and watch the other ones as well. But thank you for tuning in to this one, and we'll catch you next time.